These are probably like bad ideas too, where you start like multiple episodes back to back, but only set up the thing beforehand. So I'm pretty sure we're losing you guys in between episodes, but whatever. They're mostly just me recording these things anyway, so you guys are gonna like this one. I'm gonna, talk a little bit here. If you're seeing this on Patreon, welcome. You can skip ahead about a minute or two. I'm just waiting because we have a bunch of live guys coming in. We'll filter it out till they get in here. And yeah. So the point of this one was a guy talking about how do I have to stop loving my wife for this thing to work? And there's a whole bunch of stuff to break down in it. But the one thing there that I do like is he makes a reference to an old Wine More Please. If you guys don't remember him, hey, what's up, John? If you guys don't remember him, there was he's like I don't know, probably the strongest flame in the sphere. He used to be a moderator at the Married, well, I guess he still is a moderator at the Red Pill. He's been at this for easily as long as me, kind of same background. But yeah, he's just savage with guys, like zero patience. Yeah, I'm not even sure. The problem is it's kind of a long one to go through. So I don't want to total digression and do like a twofer in the one. So just be aware when he talks about referencing a Wine More Please post, that it's this guy's breaking down somebody's anger phase. And all it is realizing that the guy is codependent, validation seeking. He got a little bit of validation and he thinks he's won the Super Bowl. But then as soon as that validation goes away, he has an existential crisis. It's one of those 2 years I've been married with the Red Pill and like what's a comfort test kind of guys. So they're kind of annoying. But it's good. I might actually do like another episode just on this one. It's not in my canon list, but it's pretty good. But it's kind of snarky too, and a lot of cussing, so it'll probably won't get moved onto YouTube very much at all. All right. But yeah, it's kind of fun, and it follows on the last one too, right? Because I think everybody has this moment within their Red Pill journey. And I really hope Red Pill journey doesn't take off, because I know just some assholes on Twitter are going to use that to sell their no masturbation courses. But yeah. And it'll give me Twitter content, but I'd rather just not go there at all. And I think you've kind of also caught on to the theme that there was a lot of animosity between the Red Pill sub and the married Red Pill sub. I don't think that's so much a problem with like the material in it. I think that's a demographic issue. Just young guys are stupid, and young inexperienced guys talk a lot, and they just like for most of the time, even the most beta male married guy ever has at least had sex once. So when I see like a bunch of young guys who haven't had sex at all talking about this stuff authoritatively, like, yeah, that should put it in perspective why a lot of people have some issues with it. But oh, it's good to see. I see Zenith, Red Strike in here too. So if you're watching this on Patreon, don't forget, these are like some add-ons I give. I like giving you guys some things. I usually post them in there. For everybody else, going to do the recording. And once it's done, we'll have some chit-chat. So you guys are going to like this. So what about love? Welcome to the MIDS Watch. I absolutely adore this one. Mostly because it's endemic of guys who like may not be, I don't want to say smart enough, but they're a little bit blunt. And so they'll ask these weird questions that have these odd hypotheticals that make no sense. So you're actually really, but it's not a bad thing, because the good thing is you get to delve into it. And in this case, it's this guy asking, do I have to stop loving my wife for the Red Pill to work? Like, and that sounds like a serious question. You hear all the stuff about Red Pill, women ain't whatever. And you think, okay, so then I have to hate women, and then this stuff will work great, and I'll get all this sex, and that's great. And it's like, no, that's not really it. But you can see how somebody who's brand new would think that. The good part about it is it forces you to kind of like articulate this stuff, map it to your own experiences, and get it out there. So the one thing I do love about stupid questions is they help you be better at what you're doing, because it's less instinctual and more deliberate. And that's kind of the goal here, to be deliberate about this stuff. So to get started in it, he's been married 13 years. He's been red pilled 2 months. He has a bunch of like Own Your Shit Weekly posts to give some context. So this guy actually does do his field reports and works on his stuff. He just got turned down after what he thought was a great day of gaming her, mutual flirting, etc. Left the house for a long walk. He's like, I got a long way to go, but after lifting for 4 months, I'm in the best shape of my life by far. Wife is a good-looking woman, but she's also 48. She hit the wall years ago, and she's not going to find another man like me. She's just not. Now, it's obvious to me in that moment that everything I've done in the red pill has been for her, not me. I'm lifting for her, so she'll want me. Covert contract. And it's not working because she still doesn't want me. I have got one-itis bad for her. She's my wife, she's the mother of my children, and I love her. And judging both by words and actions, I love her more than she does me. So I've noticed something in the sidebar talks about love, at least nothing positive. It's one-itis. It's a weakness to weed out your soul because the person who cares the least controls the relationship. So I have to extinguish the love for my wife to make this work. I mean, and I could do that, I think. But the only reason I'm with my wife is because I love her. So what's the point of winning the battle and preserving the relationship if the price that I have to pay is stop caring about the relationship? So my question is, can I win my wife back, but only if I force myself to stop caring about her? Is that the price? So I hope you guys see, it's like a weird way of framing the whole thing. So this is where we're going to talk about like solutions, Jack 10 style. So I'm going to do you a favor and parse this out for you because everybody is jumping on you for asking such a stupid question. And he mentions first to read something by Wine More Please, which is some guy talking about his anger phase, essentially realizing the first 2 years of his male action plan were a covert contract. He was doing everything to try and win the wife back. The wife popped that bubble, and then he has an existential crisis. Wine More Please has a great one on there. I'll make us another episode about it, but I'll just skip to the final part of it, because it kind of sums up it sums up the takeaway for you. And he tells the guy at the end of this huge 2,000 word takedown on why everything he's done is a covert contract, an ego defense, and why he hasn't been red pilled at all. He's just codependent, one-itis for every girl around. Like, you are so full of shit, it's unbelievable. Your first and foremost failure is that you haven't internalized being your own judge. Your second failure is that you're lazy and you're weak. You talk about all this stuff, and you lack the follow-through to implement the actions necessary to affect change. So take that statement. For a lot of guys who are noticing their life's not going according to plan, even though, like, I read 3 Rational Male articles, what the hell? Keep in mind, that follow-through to implement the actions necessary and internalizing being your own judge, those are very connected issues. Because when guys don't do one, they don't do the other. If you think the other girl is the judge, you're doing everything for her, you become validation seeking, and girls will always blow that stuff up because you haven't really changed their feelings. All you've done is, play this weird dancing monkey game. And if you don't have the follow through, well then who cares how smart you are? The best you can do is just spout off a couple rules from Rational Male and then get mad your wife's still not going to touch you. So like you, this guy was still working under the misguided assumption that all of this self-improvement entitles him to his wife's attraction. Except for, that guy held the assumption for 2 years. Remember what I said before? It's always 2 years for some reason on these guys. While you seem to be self-aware enough on this that you can openly admit it in a much shorter time frame. And bringing up the point that the cardinal rule of relationships, because whoever cares the least controls the relationship, like, this is functionally true. But you're being way too narrow-minded when you consider this. And it's when he brings up how the guy talked about his wife's 48, she hit the wall, she'll never be able to find another man like me. So he's like, let me summarize this conflicted and tortured thinking that went on your head during your walk. How can she just turn me down like that? Everything was going so well. Doesn't she realize how disappointing that is? Why would she so cavalierly disappoint her husband? Does she just assume there won't be any consequences? Especially after all this improvement. What does she think a husband whose wife doesn't fuck him is going to do? Just be cool and accept it? Like, I could see her maybe turning me down for sex 4 months ago when I was flabby and lazy, but I've done so much since then that I'm in shape. I've run the household like a champ. Our family and kids are thriving, plus everything else I was doing before. Does she really think a guy like that grows on trees? And if I don't accept a sexless marriage, then she'll find someone else? But would I really refuse to accept this? If she doesn't put out, then we're done? How could it be that simple? I don't want to be done. I love her. I love our family. I don't want to leave her. Where would I go? I have no friends but her friends. I have no family of my own. Sometimes I'm tempted to put some distance between us. Maybe that's what it'll take for her to finally stop taking me for granted. But even if she became affectionate and sexual in response, it's only over her anxiety of losing me, not because she actually wants me. And if that doesn't work, well, at the end of the day, I'd really have to pull the trigger on a divorce. I don't know, man. But what if it's only the authentic potential that our marriage is at risk that would get her to realize the consequences of her sexless marriage? Is that about right? Putting a pause in there. Do you guys not notice that sounds like something Elliot Rodger would have put out on a final YouTube video? Like, do you hear this though? Like, and I don't mean to equate a guy in a sexless marriage who's frustrated at his wife with that guy, but it's the same male sentiment, just to a much different degree. And this is what covert contracts are. How does she not know she struck the jackpot? I did all of these things for her. And this is like the insidious part of covert contracts. And I know it sounds like I'm being hyperbolic, but I'm really not. For a lot of guys, you get that right amount of crazy, that right amount of capability. You could end up taking what would otherwise be just like a harmless covert contract where one guy ends up, depressed in his own marriage. You put that in the right single guy and you'll get yourself an Elliot Rodger. And I actually have an article on this called Ask Your Doctor If Thotrazone is Right for You. Essentially, all of these choices we've made that have maximized female control and power within the relationship. And if you want to know what the hell I'm talking about there's a great article by Dalrock called Threat Point. Look it up. Take all that stuff. There's going to be consequences. Now, I don't mean this as a threat. I just mean this like that's how it happens. Every action has a reaction. In this case, you're going to get 999,999,999 guys who quietly cry and then give $4,000 to some booby Twitch streamer doing a hot tub stream wearing a horse head. But there's that one guy who takes things entirely too far. And then we all get mad, we blame men, and it creates a weird cycle on it instead of just thinking of it as that's the consequence of the way things are right now. There's going to be a micro percentage of guys who get absolutely horrible at this. So when you think this is just some goofball talking about getting laid, whatever, it's like, yeah, that's fine, think that way, but just realize there's that 1 out of a million chance that a guy who understands this stuff and implements this doesn't end up going on a shooting spree. And I think we would do well to keep that in mind while we're sitting here getting drunk, yelling at chicks on a podcast about how we need to hold them accountable, or MGTOW 42069 ranting about how the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Like, it's not about them. It's about you. But back to this. The only negative things about love I've read on the Red Pill is about unconditional love. It simply does not exist. It exists between parents and children. It exists between people and dogs. And even when the child becomes an adult, it becomes just as conditional as every other adult-to-adult relationship. I love you, so I treat you with love. You love me, so you treat me with love. If you say you love me and you don't treat me with love, well, go fuck yourself. You don't need to be some unfeeling, dark triad psychopath to do this. You just need to know, stop being kind and generous to people who treat you like shit. Which I'm surprised we actually have to mention that, but this is where we are in 2021. And the only people who struggle to realize this is when the alternative to stop being kind and generous to people who treat you shitty is being alone. Because, man, do we fucking hate to be alone. Or rather, we hate being lonely, both men and women. And it's no surprise that the same genetics that require us to bond with another person to reproduce, why we have all those hormones that kick into our system to make us want to stick with the person the next day, it's no surprise that it probably makes us also feel uncomfortable at the idea of being an estranged hermit with little intimate human contact. So it's not weak shit to feel that way. Seriously, everybody does. But it's just as weak when you put your wife on a pedestal and allow your life to devolve to the point where you're terrified at the idea of divorce because you know it'll mean even less intimacy with human beings except for your kids. And you've already been miserable enough with the scraps of intimacy you do get, which is probably why it sounds like the married red pill veterans sound so cavalier in our advice. But realize what fuels all of this, our rock bottom, probably isn't as dire as yours, because at least for me, my life isn't just my wife and my family, and a divorce to me doesn't mean my kids vanish into a puff of smoke never to be seen again. I'm terrified of being lonely, but getting divorced doesn't mean I'll be lonely. So I'm not afraid of divorce. Do you see the distinction? And as a side note on this one too, a lot of guys think, oh, married red pill, so you guys are pro-marriage. It's like, no, absolutely not. Like every 6 months, some guy's like, I'd love to get married. And then he expects this to be like a more sympathetic red-pilled audience where everybody's like, no, marriage is a horrible deal. Don't do it. But aren't you guys all married? It's like, well, for most of the guys, they were married before they found the red pill. And then the best way I've heard it put was that red pill isn't pro-marriage, it's anti-divorce rape. So like you're already in a relationship, make it work. Give it your best shot. And if you end up in a separation, make that divorce hurt as little as it needs to, or only as much as it needs to. But it's not the same thing as being pro-marriage. Again, I've always said there's a gap between a relationship problem and just saying next, just ditching her, throwing her to the curb. The whole of the married red pill is to span that small gap between a girl crossing a boundary and you kicking her out on her ass, because there's financial and like relationship consequences to that. If you're married, 2 kids, a house, you get the deal. Now, it's easy for guys like me to say, I've already been divorced and I didn't have the barren social bonds with other people that you seemingly do. I still went through all the usual anguish of, oh God, I'll never be able to see my son again and he'll eventually be psychologically destroyed and blah, blah, blah. It didn't turn out that way for me, and it usually doesn't for almost all guys. Now I say this because, and let's be clear, your post isn't about love, and it's definitely not about unconditional love. It's about a man that's terrified whose 2 choices are, accept that your marriage may never have the dynamic you've always wanted, but at least you probably won't die alone, and refuse to accept that, strive for the kinds of sexually intimate relations with women you've always wanted, but risk dying alone. Right? Red or blue, baby. Now, I know you don't want to go down that rabbit hole. It's dark and it's scary, and who the hell knows what's down there. The blue pill means you get to keep eating steak, even if it's just some TV tray steak that barely qualifies as actual meat. Now, if you, like most guys, came here from dead bedrooms, then I don't need to tell you how many guys there feel like these are their only 2 options. The saddest of the sad, both in how fucking pathetic these guys are, but how I really can't help but pity anyone who has reached this emotional depth to even consider this, and are asking about some chemical castration or other techniques to destroy their sex drive, which is true, by the way. I was absolutely baffled the first time I saw guys like this. They were so terrified of being alone, but so sexually deprived from their wives, that they were considering castration just to make the pain go away. And I know you guys hear me talk before about learned helplessness. This is a perfect example of that. Like, there is no cage, but the guy is terrified of dying alone, so he sits in that cage and just gets electrified and cries. Doesn't want to escape. So yeah, there's always stories behind these things. It's not just me being pithy on Twitter. And even Jack's like, yeah, they don't want the blue pill. They want a figurative lobotomy so they can exist completely ignorant that option 2 even exists. So I tell you what, buddy. I'm going to make this simple for you. Everyone's going to tell you that your question is ridiculous and red pill is about you and blah, 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 but you seem introspective and self-aware despite the pathetic phrasing of your question vis-a-vis love. To already know all that, so I'm going to give you this advice, but in a way that will make it seem like your choices about this shitty dichotomy between sexual frustration and dying alone. De-risk your downside. You'll stop being afraid of your rock bottom. I have a few friends in the entertainment industry, and 2 decades ago, one of them finally got a potential break for one of his scripts. I asked him if he was nervous, and finally, all of his hard work could pay off, but how could you even sleep at night? And he said, like, dude, if this works out, all this means is that I'm finally able to grab onto the lowest rung of the ladder in the industry that I like. But if it doesn't, exactly how far am I going to fall? And if you saw a day in this guy's life, it wasn't a successful life by typical metrics, but it was a good life. He lived with 2 good friends, a few miles from the beach. He'd work on his writing all day, and then he'd work as a personal trainer in the afternoon and the evening, and bartend on the weekends. Both jobs left him with no shortage of dating options. He later theorized that the reason so many people don't make it in Hollywood is that their downside is too de-risked. They're having too much fun, irrelevant to their success, and that it's easy not to be disciplined about not being successful. Like my friend said, falling off that first run of the ladder doesn't hurt so much, so who cares if you fall? Is it possible for an abundance mentality to backfire if you have too much abundance? Sure. So many appealing secondary options that you don't even care if you accomplish your primary one, something to think about. But hopefully, it's painting clear to you that you have the opposite problem. You have no abundance. Not just with sex, but with any interpersonal relationships of any kind. So it's time to change that. Go do shit. Go make friends. Making the new guy friends is simultaneously stupidly simple and really hard because it mostly consists of show up, do something with the other guy, and bond over time. That's it. So shut the fuck up, show up, work hard at whatever your shared goals are, be friendly. You don't even need to be particularly social, although that helps. It's really that simple, but it'll take months, if not years, which is why it's hard. But that's it. This will accomplish two things. One, on whatever ladder you feel you're holding on to, you'll start being able to see the floor. Two, these new social bonds will get you out of the house, get you away from being butthurt about your wife's lightest rejection, and any distance she perceives will be authentic and organic behavior from you, not just some calculated posturing to induce a particular anxious emotional reaction. The key part of this, by the way, is a lot of guys have this issue. It's the same as when girls say they just want a man that gets it, is that if a guy has to do some weird tip or trick to create anxiety in his wife to get her to love him, then he doesn't see it as genuine. And it's like, okay, so she doesn't actually love me. She's just anxious about losing me. And a guy feels that disconnect between her and him. So when you actually do it this way, the not the fake it part, but the make it part, then you completely bypass that entire existential crisis. Because like, oh, I'm just busy doing my own thing. And then just so happens this worked out. So, you know, for some reason, same activity, same emotional state, but it just feels more genuine. We're human beings. We have to lie to ourselves sometimes. And this is one of those ones that works out well because the way you lie to yourself is by being socially active and savvy and not alone. And then it just so happens to do the exact same thing as if you did it by faking it. But like I said, the moon's made out of cheese. Go work out. So given your barren social life, I'm almost positive your wife's contempt for you is akin to how a mother feels about a touchy toddler some days. You've demanded so much of her attention over the years that suggesting more attention always comes with some sort of last straw for her, which is why she always reacts with such hostility. You're like a toddler whining about candy, and then you get some candy, and then you go, but I want the cherry flavored kind. And you wonder why she's quick to go, no, are you fucking kidding me? The same as when you get sick. And there's an old field report from his Own Your Shits where he actually got sick and his wife just lost it on him. And it's funny because he's the kind of guy then who will go on the internet and say, like, don't get sick, your wife won't love you anymore. So just so you know, when you see those woe is me, MGTOW Ford 2069 posts about don't ever show weakness in front of your wife, just remember this is the kind of guy that it's coming from. A guy whose wife is openly hostile about his sexuality. Anyways, he actually does a lot of like more explanation on this stuff, which is kind of annoying, but skipping past here. So that's my prescription. Make some friends. Stop putting the burden of social bonds on your wife. I suspect her reactions to your fitness, like how you mentioned she started jogging again, isn't some reflexive, oh no, he's getting sexier, so I need to step my game, but rather relieved, oh good, he's actually doing something out of the house and exercising. Maybe I can exercise too now that it's something we're both doing. So do more of that. She'll probably do more of her own thing, and that's actually good. In the meantime, put a moratorium on sex. It's painfully clear you're hamstering way too much every time you get sexually rejected, so just stop. If you can't audition for casting calls without breaking down into a hot mess every time, then stop auditioning for a while. Eventually, your wife may say something like, hey stranger, or I haven't seen you all week, and that's her missing you, missing your presence, something that might be a very rare feeling in your marriage. It might even be a shit test, where she rants about you being out of the house all the time. Just agree and amplify her, slap her on the ass, and say, oh, do you miss me, honey? And then when you get to this point, start initiating again. You cannot make your wife love you, but you can do things to make your life less shitty if you conclude she'll never love you. And doing these things may actually make her love you the way you do want. It's not easy, but it is simple. Best of luck. So some final thoughts on this one. And I said, I love these ones because they're a little old. Like in the meantime, we've learned that kind of ends up being perceived as a covert contract as well, but softer. So we've kind of gone with Operation Scorched Earth, where for this guy, the best advice is the marriage is dead. Assume it's dead. She's now your training partner. Instead of a sex moratorium, instead of sitting around and just seeing what happens, doing it slow, it's like, look, forget she exists, go do your thing. With the option of, if there becomes some like, hey, I've missed you, where have you been, or the shit test thing, then you can reassess. But you kind of have to get that thought out of your head. Like I said, Operation Scorched Earth. Assume she died in some horrible train accident, and how would you act if that had happened? Start doing that now. Live for you. But for the most part, I mean, it's held true over the years. Like I said, giving her an opportunity to miss him. Because right now, he's clingy, he's codependent, he's validation seeking, and she builds up a cycle of resentment for it. It's not me trying to guess, but you actually see it. If you go through his Own Your Shit reports, it's just, he's clingy, he whines, he wants sex, he has no friends, so she's his only social outlet. She's tired of it. Like I said, same way that a toddler will constantly harass mom, and so mom hides in the bathroom and sends out a TikTok about how she's terrified of her toddler. But luckily enough, it's not one of her kids, so she doesn't have that unconditional love behind her where she feels frustrated and trapped. In her case, she just builds it out by lashing out resentment. Go make some new friends. Go talk to some new girls. Go do some catch and release. Go work out. Literally treat her as if she's no longer important in your life. And your actions change your thoughts. You can't think your way into different actions. So by doing all this, he's actually going to naturally shed all of his codependent behaviors. And in that case, if there's any hope of this relationship, it'll all just naturally slide into a more beneficial place. But the only way that works is if you have to assume that's impossible and it's not going to happen. And he's just trying to, like I said, you're holding on to that last rung of the ladder. You're just trying to build up that floor. So whatever fall you have is not going to hurt. If you want to see more on this one, I would suggest Rollo Tomasi, great article, The Safety Net. Give it a shot. I think you'll like it. But I've been rambling on for 23 minutes. I think we're at enough for this episode. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers. Bit of a longer one. Holy Jesus, a lot of T-Rexes in the chat. What's up, guys? Yeah, if you guys are watching this one on Patreon after the fact, go on the live chat. You're going to see a lot of T-Rex references. If you don't know what that is, there's a Discord channel for all the Patreon guys, as well as a couple of the other Red Pill channels. Come on in, give it a look. But I've read Marcus Aurelius. Why can't I get a blowy? Darth, you're hilarious. Swerve RP nerd. Sorry, Dante says I'm a giraffe. Dude, giraffe's a good thing. Oh, if you guys don't know what that reference is, it was you know how every alpha male loves to call themselves a lion in the savannah, and I can't remember who started it, but it was like, hey, you know what'll fuck up a lion? A giraffe. And there was this picture of 3 lions going after this giraffe, and the giraffe just bowling them all over. And then there's video clips of just giraffes beating the shit out of lions left, right, and center. And so it's the idea is that you're beyond this whole alpha male crap. You're now a giraffe. I like it too because it's the least alpha sounding animal out there, but he'll fuck you up if he has to. Too much inner talk going on here. If you get to this stage, you're not dedicated enough to form the situation by default will reek of neediness. Yeah, I mean, there's 2 separate things there, right? You're talking about inner talk. The self-reflection is key. Again, I've talked about OODA loops, which is kind of the thought process you have to do to, the faster you're able to process OODA loops, the faster you're able to advance and become more of your mental point of origin or red-pilled. But that's the thing. Observe, orient, decide, and act. It's that observe and orient. That's where the self-reflection comes in. Self-reflection and observation. But yeah, if you're doing it at the expense of deciding and acting, then for sure it's too much. But if I find a lot of the times, it depends who you're talking to, but guys will either be too much on the thinking or too much on the acting. And if you're good at one, start focusing on the other. It's kind of one of those things. Trust me. Oh, wait. Damn it, the scrolling thing went down. Trust me, having the wife and all the kids and then learning about the red pill can cause some serious, crazy trains of thought. I'm sure many others can agree. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? That's what's nice about being able to ping this stuff off other guys' heads, having that locker room do your thing. It's just, especially if a guy's been there, done that. He could be like, slow down, man. In this case, it's a very long-winded report of telling a guy dude, chill out, get out of your wife's ass, and go give her a chance to miss you. 3,000 words of that. And don't be an obnoxious know-it-all prick. Shut up and listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Well, yeah, you mean I'm assuming you mean to other red pill guys and not to your wife. Yeah. She doesn't like me and she's just or just anxious. It's a hard mental hurdle to cross. There's actually a great article on this one too. I want to say it's from The Last Psychiatrist, but the name of it escapes me right now. But it was this nice thing on a guy's narcissistic thought process of being attractive. It's that guys want a girl, and this is the very poor men raised as defective women part of the thought process here that you've really got to shed. Replace it with mental point of origin, but I'll go through it as best I can here. You think that a girl needs to love you unconditionally just for you being you. There has to be some kind of intrinsic worth on you, because if you were to do something and then she responds well to that, well, then she's an idiot. And she just, not only did she love you for not being you, but she loved you because of some trick, which also means she's kind of stupid and you can't trust her judgment, which is like this weird thing. That's where a lot of the hate for like pickup artists and that come from. It's like, well, if I have to walk up and dance like a monkey and dress in a top hat for the girl to like me, then how smart is she? She's got to be a broken woman for her to fall for these simple tips and tricks. And it's where guys keep thinking about them. They, like, again, the genders aren't equal. They think, I'm just like a woman. I've got intrinsic worth. It's like, no, you don't. What you do matters. And that's the thing. You did a bunch of things that were attractive, and a girl responded by being attracted. Well, that's not the real authentic me she fell in love with. That's a fiction. It's like, is it? Did you ever think that maybe your identity as a man is essentially wrapped up in the things that you do, and that people respond to you based on that and the needs of their own self-interest? You don't have to like it, but hey, nobody has to like being a man either. It's got some good perks. You can work out a lot more. The shaving is kind of fun. I don't know, you can pee standing up almost anywhere in the world. Girls have to find a toilet somewhere, or they just can't. If anything, I think we got the great end of the deal. All you have to do is ditch the idea of intrinsic worth, and you can pee out in the woods whenever you want to. You don't have to hold it until you get to the next gas station. Fair. Yeah, referring to making friends, especially in the beginning. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Made that mistake too often to compensate for lack of confidence. Yeah. Again, it's one of those easy things. If you just ask a guy a question that lets you tell him how smart he is, they'll actually think much higher of you than if you actually start speaking intelligently. It's just one of those things. Give your wife a chance to miss you. I've never heard it quite put like that. Dude, I use that line all the time. I remember when I first started working from home as part of like the YouTube channel and that, my girl used to call me from her job like 4 or 5 times. And eventually like and I was like, all right, I'm cutting this down. 2 calls a day. That's it. So at the second call, I'm like, she's like, I'll call you back. I'm like, give me a chance to miss you. Works like a charm, by the way, but that's like just small boundary things, right? Yeah, no one is too intelligent for bimbos. Again, girls are girls. I don't really find it's like actually looking at somebody and giving them a reference to what I think they are as intelligent. Like, are they smarter than me? Are they stupid than me? I find it's almost as cringe as those guys who tell you what their sexual market value is. Like, I'm a 6 out of 10. I'm a 7 out of 10. I'm like, dude, first off, you don't get to pick what you are. Women get to judge that. Secondly, that's kind of why it doesn't matter. Just focus on what you're pulling. And all you need to know is, this is like, here, if you want to talk about the way men think about things versus women, women will think, well, I'm a 10. Guys will think, I could pull a 10. I could pull a 9. I could pull an 8. See the difference there? This is what the world thinks of me. That's solipsism. This is what I can do to the world. That's the masculine version of it. So yeah. Just don't initiate contact with her. Let her come to you. Well, and see, it's like a hard sell on that, because when it comes to sex, women are reactive. So you have to be the initiator, which is true. Let women come to you, like in that case, especially where he's too codependent, is absolutely true. But a lot of guys miss how women approach. They think they're like guys. If a girl wants you, she'll walk up to you, give you a line, jump on your dick. Like, they don't think that way. They make themselves available. They give you hints. And if you're the kind of guy who's not good at this stuff, that subtlety will probably be lost on you, wondering, why does she never want me? All she does is just stand there and stare at me weirdly for like a minute and then get frustrated and leave. It's like, yeah, So just be aware. Like, let her initiate, let her come to you. It's true. Just don't expect her to act like a guy, grab you by the junk and say, let's go. Bathroom now. Yeah. I'm gonna 6 out of 10 that Mensa. I can't approach anybody higher than 7.35 out of 10. Yeah, that person thinking, by the way. I know it's one of those, it's one thing that always gets me about all of this stuff. It's just, yes, the sexual market value is a thing. Yes, there's like a pseudo objective scale on how attractive people are. Some people are lower, some people are higher. I get all that. The problem is when guys take it too far and they start treating it as like the singular factor. It kind of reminds me of COVID. Like, there's lots of ways to die, of which COVID is one. Financial destitution and economic decline is another. And you can't just treat one as a variable in isolation. You kind of have to take all of it into account. And I find for those guys that do too much SMV and looks maxing talk, they kind of forget that. All right. So what I'm going to do now, you guys are going to like this. Got another one coming up, and then we're going to break for lunch. Oh, this one's going to be kind of funny. Is it the calling out? No, we already did the calling out. The next one's going to be, my wife told me I'm horrible in bed and pathetic childish for feeling emasculated regarding the remarks. It's going to be more fun. A little shorter, though. So keep an eye out on the channel. I'll start that one up. I'll see you guys in a minute. Cheers.